Slide only? No.
Just press play.
Wait, one second. I just want to do it like this. Great. Format. Okay. Wait. And we're good.
Just do full screen.
Because I have to switch back and forth. All right. Hey, guys. Welcome to Lecture 7. We're going to be talking about deployment and some GitHub basics for the hack challenge. Yeah. Okay, so Eatery, we've launched Eatery for Android, and then we also are doing some user testing because we plan on adding some new features to the Eatery app, like crowdedness, College Town Eatery, stuff like that. So if you're interested and you want some extra credit, you can go to this link. I'll post that link as well on the Piazza, or I'll do that soon actually. Okay, anyways, some administration. So everyone should have their hack challenge teams. I guess if you don't have a hack challenge team or you're not on the hack challenge Piazza, you should talk to us after class. Your hack challenge TAs should be reaching out for midpoint meetings. So I also need to do that. But grades for all the projects are out. And if you have any questions or comments, you can ask us for regrades through Piazza. If anyone was worried about passing or not being able to pass a class, we emailed everyone about that already. So if you didn't get an email, you're gonna pass the class as long as you do the hack challenge. So yeah. All right. So what have we done so far? So we're kind of gonna go through some of the stuff we went through this semester. So in the beginning, we started with a Flask app with some static data. So this is from the demo code. And so we had a tasks object, and we basically had this at the top of our app.py file. And then whenever users made requests, basically we would just update this object. And if you guys remember, one of the cons to this was that whenever we restarted the app, all of the changes to this would be lost. From there, we moved to doing raw SQL. So yeah, we talked about SQL in class, and then we had a db.py file. This is also from the same, or the next demo, I guess. And we had a task table, and then we wrote SQL queries to query, or I guess get stuff from that table, to update the table, to delete items in that table as well. And then the last, I guess, step that we had was introducing SQL Alchemy. So an ORM that allowed us to kind of have more clear, more readable definitions of the fields that we wanted in our tables. And so some of the stuff that we didn't do. So I think the main thing that we had in last year's version of this class that we didn't this semester was maybe something like this, where we have architecture changes. So instead of having everything in the same two files, so this is actually from a pull request that I made on one of our app dev repos. But basically we had something similar. We had all our code in two files, and then it basically gets pretty bloated. So then maybe we can separate stuff out and have a more complex architecture, I guess, so that more stuff is decoupled. But we didn't really have a need for that because our data modeling was pretty simple. But that's something you guys can consider for your hack challenge. If you have a lot of models that you're dealing with, it might be worth it to separate stuff out so that it's more readable and it's more intuitive as to what is going on. Okay, so yeah, so we'll get into deployment. So this is kind of one of the trickier topics, or the trickiest topic that we'll cover. So I made a note on Piazza. So if you go to this link, let's see. So everyone should go on that link right now, and basically it's a Google Cloud Platform education grant. So our faculty advisor who the courses, or our faculty advisor, the courses are under his name, and then basically he submitted a request for us to get cloud credit. So everyone should just fill this out, and then it takes a minute or two to actually get the credit. So I'll wait for people to do that. In the meantime, I will put the link to the Eatery thing in the note while you guys are doing that. All right. Okay. Lecture 7. What should I call it? Resources. Okay. Oops. Where is it? How did this open? Okay. Nice.
I don't know how to specify Google Cloud code.
Oh, yeah. Okay, and then after you fill that out, you should get like another link that allows you to add credit to Google Cloud. So did anyone not get that link yet? Can you raise your hand? So everyone got the codes, right? Who's following along? Yes? Okay, awesome. Okay, so if you click on, wait, let me see if I can find what that link looks like. Okay, so let's see. Great, so it should look something like this if the email ever loads. Yeah, so you just click on this link to actually redeem the stuff. Okay, so when you click on that link, hopefully you get redirected to a page like this. So you get redirected to the Google Cloud Console, and this is what we're going to be using as our solution for like server hosting. And so we'll go through a demo. You'll basically do this or repeat the same process for when you actually want to deploy your apps. Great, so I get this error. It says the coupon code that you have entered is invalid, but you guys should not get that. And then basically you just fill out this form and then accept and continue. And then, so if this is the first time that you're using Google Cloud, then you're probably, when you like go to the home page, then you're probably going to get like this thing, select a project, and you'll probably have to create a project, and you can name that whatever you want. I just called oh yeah, and then for billing, it should say like the course number, which is just from like that just means that the coupon code has been applied. So out of courses or something. Does anyone have any questions up to this point or any issues that they ran into? Yeah, what's up?
On my Google Cloud platform, I don't have the project thing right next to where it says Google Cloud Platform on the top of it.
Do you want to look at his and see what it looks like? Yeah, okay. Does anyone have any other questions or problems? So does anyone need more time to like create the project and stuff? Just raise your hand if you need more time. Okay.
I clicked a SQL project. It listed like a few presets, and I guess I could just delete it. Am I not supposed to do that? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I don't think it really matters unless they like initialize some stuff for you. Okay, you should probably just have a blank project. Yeah. Okay, so after you create the project, then you can click on like the tab thing on the left, the hamburger menu, and then go to scroll down, and then there's this thing called Compute Engine. And so this is Google Cloud's like way of provisioning servers that we can access. So at the very top, well, I can't scroll when I zoom. This is great. Okay, there's this at the top. There's this thing called VM instances, so you can click on that. So if you scroll down in the left hamburger menu, then you get compute engine, and at the very top, there should be VM instances. So you'll probably get this screen, like compute engine is getting ready, so it's just initializing for your project. Hopefully it does not take more than a minute. This may take a minute or more. Oh. All right, so in the meantime, I guess I'll talk about what we're planning on doing. So we are basically going to, wait, I have slides for this actually. Let me pull this up. So what have we done so far? Yeah, so we're going to be using Docker to Dockerize, or you guys will be using Docker to Dockerize your applications, and we'll be talking about what that means and like going through a sample for the like the last lecture, I think. So with SQL Alchemy, like the to-do list app, we'll be Dockerizing that and then deploying that onto the server that we're provisioning right now. I guess this is still getting ready, so I guess we can talk about Docker. Should I just like pin this?
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
I just found the collar.
Oh, that's smart. Okay. One second. I'm kind of stupid. Okay. All right. Does it pick up?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Basically, we're gonna go through a Docker configuration for the last, or like lecture 4 demo on Aptive Courses. You guys actually don't have to follow along with this part because this will be uploaded, or like well, I guess like this specific step isn't important. Like it's just more important that like you understand the concepts of like how you might Dockerize your application. So the whole point of using Docker, I think I have a slide for this. Let's see. Oh yeah, so what is Docker? So we've been using it kind of throughout the semester as a pseudo VM. But Docker describes itself as a container platform that allows developers to package code into a standardized unit of software. So we can kind of think about this as like, if I had this application, so this is the lecture for demo code. Even if I had this application, it might run differently on like different versions of Python, on different operating systems, and Docker basically is trying to standardize all of that by encoding that information into a container, if that makes sense. So a container is really similar to a virtual machine. It just contains like all of the necessary information to actually run an app from like start to finish, or any application. Okay, great. So here, and if I do git that, so the only change I've made is this Docker file. But we'll talk about like what it actually contains. So Dockerizing your application is pretty simple. So first you say like you specify an operating system to start from. So here we're using an operating system called Alpine. So this is sort of like a lightweight Linux distribution. So something like Ubuntu, which is probably the most popular Linux distribution, is pretty heavyweight in terms of like a lot of packages come pre-installed. But for our purposes, there isn't really a point because we're only going to be using it in the context of Python. So we run this command. So basically each of these is like its own thing. So you have one from command, and this specifies like what operating system to start from. This run command says like run this command in the context of the previous ones. Copy just says like copy our files from our directory over into the container. And then we pip install all the requirements. So this syntax is basically saying like run a module that's installed with Python 3 called pip. So this is a way to specify, like a specific module within Python 3 to run as. And then the last command just exposes the port 5000 where our application is running. And this last one, which is just CMD, is what to run when you actually start the container. So I know that was a pretty brief introduction to Docker, but you can find a lot of documentation on it online, and your Docker file will probably be extremely similar to this one. So once you have a Docker file, then you can build it by running the following. So we can run docker build, and then we can tag the image that we're building. So maybe we can call it like app test or something. And then we specify the directory to build the image in. So that's just the current directory. And then if we look at what's happening, it basically runs each of the commands that we had in our Docker file. So it first looks for the image, then runs, then adds this to the image that installs Python 3, copies our files over, and then pip installs the requirements, which is still happening right now. Does anyone have any questions about Docker, that Docker file? Yeah, what's up?
I have a question about Google Cloud.
Yeah.
So it apparently redeemed the coupon on my personal Google account. Is that like a problem, or does that not matter?
No, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it actually redeemed it on my personal account as well.
It's defaulted to that one.
Yeah, I know. The same thing happened to me, so it's fine. Oh, yeah, we'll check on that. Okay, great. Yep, so now once I've built this image, so this image basically encodes for all the information, or like how to run this code from scratch, so like starting from an empty Linux distribution. So to run it, I can just do docker run and then app test. So the app starts, so it runs the last command in our Docker file, which was so lucky. Yeah, so if you look at the last command in the Docker file, this is the one that actually runs the app, and that's the command that's being run when we actually run like Docker, when we run the command docker run. So one of the last things that we need to do is specify like a port mapping. So this app is running on port 5000 in a container, which is sort of like a virtual machine, and we just need to tell Docker to map our port, like on our computer, to the container's port 5000. So that looks something like this. Okay, maybe it doesn't look like that, but I think I need it in quotes. Unlucky. Okay, let me.
It has to be, I think you have to do it before.
Okay,
app test.
yeah. Okay, yeah, so the problem was that I had the terminal flag like before the name of the image to run, so it was in the wrong order. So once it's running, then I can go to my local host, like you guys have done in this class a lot, and hopefully it's running. Yep, so this is just and we can see that the GET request was registered. So it looks pretty similar to how when we actually run the app ourselves. And turns out that there's this really nice tool called Docker Hub. So this is basically called an image, and we can upload that image to this place called Docker Hub that allows us to publicly host our Docker images. So this is pretty simple. Like you can just make an account on this website, and your images are publicly hosted. You can push whatever you want. And like when you create an account, there are details or like tutorials on how to actually do that, but it probably looks something like this. You'll just take the tagged image. So before we call this app test, we'll just do docker tag app test and then your username on the site, which is mine is that, and then you put the name of the image that you want to push onto the thing. And then once you tag it, then you just run this. And then this pushes the image to Docker Hub. And for me, I already pushed this image before, so I'm not going to push it again. Okay, so continuing on, so going back to Google Cloud. So once this screen finishes loading, it should look something like this. So we're going to basically create a Linux server that we're going to deploy our application on. So you press create. And you can call the instance whatever you want. I guess this should be on the East Coast. I don't think it should not be in Asia. Let me find US. Anywhere on any of like the US East servers are fine. And then okay, and then basically you want to, so we have like the monthly estimate. We actually don't need that much processing power for the apps that we'll be deploying, so we can just do like a small instance. So the amount of credit is $50. I guess like if you want to save your cloud credit and use it after this class ends, you can pick a smaller instance and then you can make it last, I guess. But I'll just be using small for this demo, I guess. Oh, and something else to keep in mind is like after you finish the class, you have to like make sure to delete your servers or else you'll be charged by Google. So I'll send a reminder for that after the class ends, or like after the semester ends, I guess. And we want to change the image that we'll be using to just like a standard Linux distribution. So maybe like Ubuntu, we can use the latest stable image, Ubuntu 18.04. And the last thing that we want to do is allow HTTP traffic. So this will just allow like clients to communicate with our server. So just going over everything again, the name doesn't really matter. The region should be anywhere on US East. Machine type should be small. The boot disk should be an Ubuntu distribution, preferably this one. And you need to make sure to allow HTTP traffic. Does anyone have any questions? Great. Okay, so you just have to press create. So it'll take a little bit of time for this to boot up, probably. So after we connect to the server, the like steps that we're going to complete will be the following. We're just going to install Docker and this thing called Docker Compose, which allows us to like have more configurations for running Docker images. And then we'll just be able to run our application on the server itself. So once it finishes loading, has everyone's finished loading? Alright. So we can wait a minute. All right, so we will continue. So from here, you can just press connect with SSH. So I guess like for people who have more experience with like using VMs and like servers and stuff, you can just connect. You can download the SSH keys for that, but Google conveniently provides us a way to connect to the server from a web client. So you should get a screen like that. All right, great. So once you're in, then you should get something like this. You should have like your username. My email is that, which is why my username is that. Let me zoom in on this more. Okay, great. So let me follow along with that. Oh wait, let me link this actually. That would be a pretty smart decision. Okay, so here's the DigitalOcean tutorials. All right, great. So you can wait. Why are these the same link? That doesn't even make sense. Okay, let me edit this. That's actually a mistake. Should not have happened. Wait. Okay, great. So we have two. So you can click on the first one, and I guess you can just follow along the first one, and basically you just copy and paste the command. So this one basically, so the way that Ubuntu works is that Ubuntu itself has like a list of packages that you can install, and there are some sources that you can that it looks for when it looks for like the packages that you're able to install. So this just adds a like the Docker repository to Ubuntu. So it says like, oh, like it look for all the packages that are specified at this source. So you can just copy and paste that and then hit enter. So this is from the first link on the Piazza node, like under the Docker thing. So some more details here. So sudo, for those who may not know, just specifies like, so normally users on your on your computer have a permission level, and sudo is like the highest permission level. So the permission level of the super user, and then apt is the name of the package manager for Ubuntu, and then you're installing a package. And this -y flag just specifies like answer yes to any prompts that come up. So we'll great. I actually don't know what I did. And you can actually skip step 2 and the rest of the steps. So you just have to do step 1 of this tutorial. And then you can move on to the second one. So how to install Docker Compose. So you just follow, again, you can just follow step 1 of this tutorial as well. So step 1 of both tutorials. So then once you go through all of that, so this just installs another, like a kind of like a companion tool to Docker called Docker Compose. And after you finish both, like you should be able to like write Docker Compose version and have this command successfully finish. And you should also just be able to type Docker and get this long description of all the things that Docker can do. I will also update the Piazza note with all right, does anyone have any questions of up to this point? Anyone get stuck? Yeah.
Oh yeah, he had it too. The second command, the add apt, for some reason it's not.
Interesting. Are you sure you picked the right Linux distribution when you created it?
1804.
Yeah. Really? Very strange. Wait, which was the command that did not work?
The second one is the
Add
add
apt
yeah,
repository.
Oh, really? This one? Did other people run into the same error?
Could be the release part we could substitute just like the word bionic. That's the version 2018.
Wait, let me look at the error. Alright. Oh, okay. Wait. Actually, we'll finish this first because there's not that many steps, and then we can go through errors after. Oh, yeah, what's up?
The second link is not the same as the first one.
Yeah.
The one that you posted on Piazza is the same. Seems like it's redirecting to the same web page.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's my bad. All right, I'm just not gonna. Is it better if I use this? Yes. Yes. Okay, I'll use it. One sec. Okay. For the second one, you can just find it if you like Google, or actually, I'll just put the second link. Okay. Let me.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so you're just following step 1 on the second tutorial as well.
If it didn't work on the first one, just do it still.
Huh, if it didn't work on the first one, we can figure it out after class. But like, there's not that many more steps actually. So, okay. So once you finish all of that, you can go back to the terminal window, and then you should just be able to do docker run. So this is going to be the same thing that we had from before. So docker run, and then you can, so Docker Hub hosts images publicly, so you can all clone the same one that I pushed. And then you specify a port mapping, but in this case, whoops, I actually almost made the same mistake. You put the flag before. So here we're going to map port 80, which is the default for HTTP, and map that to 5000 on the running container. And then, whoops, this will also be, yep, and then you can just hit enter. And okay, so we got that error because Docker is not, it was like installed with sudo privileges, so you can just run sudo docker run. It should download the image from the web and hopefully run it. And okay, yeah, so it looks like it's running. And now we can go back to Google Cloud. Where is my, okay. And then there should be this external IP button. And if you just click on that, then it should open in a new tab. And then we can see that it is running the application, and we can check in our terminal and see that the GET request was made here. And like similarly, you can test in Postman and then see that like the requests are working. So like if I just sent a post request with a description and the done field, I can see that it updates appropriately on the server. So is everyone able to follow along up to that step? So the command that I ran was just this. So sudo docker run. I can also put this in the note. Docker command. So one of the cons isn't really any way for us to, like if we were running this, like, and we control C, then it stops running, right? Like I can go back here, and if I refresh, it fails to open the page because it's not persistent. So what we can do is use this tool called Docker Compose, and we can define a Docker Compose file for it. So I'll actually do that locally, put the contents on Piazza, and then you can just copy and paste that into a file on your server. So let me just... So a Docker Compose file looks something like this. Test. So we have this, whoops, test. Okay, so we have a version number of Docker Compose, and on the server we've already installed it, so it's fine. And then we have a services tag we just have one service called app test. We specify what the image is called, which is just this, and then we specify the same port mapping. And so I'll put that as well on Piazza. Oh, okay, yeah. Nice. Amazing, okay. So yours will probably look very similar, except like your Docker Compose, you'll just change the image to reflect whatever you call your pushed image on Docker Hub. So if you copy and paste this into your server, so we can just call it so we can type nano, which is just a text editor that comes pre-installed on servers, and then docker compose.yml. So the extension here is YAML, which is just sort of like it's sort of like a JSON style file type. And then you can just do Command V or Control V to copy and paste the contents. And then if you look over here, well, I don't know if my mouse is showing up on screen, but in the lower left-hand corner, there's a command. It says like the arrow-looking thing X to exit. That's just Control X. So you can type Control X. It'll ask you if you want to save, and then you just press Y to save. And it asks you to confirm the file name, and then you just hit enter here. So now if I look at the contents of that file, I can see that I have that file on the server. And now I can just do docker compose up. And this is the same thing as the run command that we had earlier. Oh, we have to do sudo docker compose up. So we get similar output to before, and now if we go back to our running server over here, before we were getting a fail to open, and now we get this once again. And the reason why the data was cleared is because it's equivalent to like the database file itself is like part of the container. So when the container is killed, it just like uses a fresh version. So this wouldn't actually happen if you were to just persist the container. And the way that we do that is if you Control C out of that, then you just do docker compose up, and then you have a -d flag, which says to start it in the background. And then if you do that, well, I forgot sudo once again, but then if you do that, then notice that like we didn't get any of the output from before, and like we can run more commands in our terminal. Meanwhile, over here, we can just refresh and see that the app is actually still running. So I'll put those commands in the Piazza as well. Does anyone have any questions? Or was everyone able to follow along? Can we have like a show of hands if people were able to follow along? Okay, nice. For people who weren't, do you have any questions? Or like other than installation issues? Like were there... Yes, no? I will put the rest. So.
What would you do if it says that the 480 is already allocated? When I run sudo docker compose up.
Port 80 was already allocated. Did you close the terminal like while you had the process open?
Yes.
Okay, so basically like if you close it, let's say like I had this running before and like I close the window, basically there's undefined behavior. So like the process might either terminate or the process could continue running. So in your case, it continued to run. So like you need to, so if you like Google, yeah, you can just Google like kill process running on port 80. And if Google ever loads, then there's like ways to do that. So yeah, you can just Google that and then you'll be able to do it. Any other questions? So after you know that. Ooh, I guess we should also have this. And then basically the contents of the Docker Compose file are just this, or it should just be that. Okay, so in the remaining 17 minutes, we're just gonna go briefly over Git, which you guys will be using for your final project. And like for final project submissions, you guys will just be submitting a link to a GitHub repository. So I will close all of these windows because like my computer can't. Well, all right, great. Okay, so so you guys should have a repository for the backend and for the iOS code as well. Let me see if this is actually gonna work. All right, create a new repository, and then maybe I'll call this app or courses demo. We don't really need a description, and then the repository that you make should be public, and this button just lets you clone the repository immediately. So GitHub is just a version control system. You might have used it in some of your classes, but if you haven't, it's totally okay. So first, after you create a repository, the next thing that you want to do is clone it onto your computer. So first, you'll have to have a GitHub account. And then, so I can clone it onto my computer by running the following. So git clone, followed by like courses demo. And so let's say I cd, so I change directory into courses demo, and I want to change the README. So I open the file up in my editor of choice, which is Vim, and then I'll just say like some changes. So let's say I cloned the repo, I want to make some changes, and I want to see what changes I've made, right? So I can run git status and see that, oh, like I've changed some files, right? And so the next thing that you have to do is you need to add those changes to be ready to be committed. So you can do that by doing git add the file name. So that's one way to do it. If you have multiple files that you've created, so let's say I create a new file. So I just put the contents hello into a file called hello.txt. So now if I do git status, I have two new files, or I have a new file and then a changed file basically. You can add multiple files at once, and you can do that by either doing git add -a, which says, oh, add all the files that we can. You can git add a directory. You can also just add them individually, which is what I will do. So if I do git status, now it says, oh, these are the changes that I'm ready to commit. So the reason why there's kind of like a separation between adding and committing is because like if you've made changes to a lot of files, it might make more sense to split that up into different commits. So once they're ready to be committed, you can specify a commit message by running the following. So git commit, and then the -m flag stands for message, and my first commit. And so now after, oh, wait, what did I do wrong?
Exclamation mark, I don't think.
Oh, you can't put exclamation marks. That's correct. Okay. So if I do that, then I get this nice text, my first commit. I can also run git log and see the previous commits. And finally, if I run git status, it says, oh, my branch is ahead. I can just push my changes to master. So that's pretty much at like a in like a simplistic way, like how you guys will probably be using GitHub. There are a lot more advanced features. But like there are some things that we should go over. For example, like merge conflicts and stuff like that. So let's say I'm also working on this. So I'm going to clone it into courses demo 2. And I go into courses demo 2. So I'm someone else who's working on the project. I git pull to see if there are any changes. It says I'm already up to date. And I'm going to edit hello. And I'm going to delete the E basically. And I run git status. It says I modify the file. I commit changed hello. Oh, you're right. Yeah. Okay. So here it said no changes were added to commit because I didn't add the file that I wanted to commit. So I can do that by doing git add hello.txt, changed hello.txt. Okay, I spelled it wrong. That's just unfortunate. But let's say I go into, so let's say I push this commit. So now I'm going to go into the original courses demo. And instead of deleting the E, I'm going to delete the else. And, I'm going to commit my changes. I need to add the file. Yep. And I commit changed hello. And I try pushing, and turns out, one of my teammates has already changed that file. So now I get this error, like, oh, updates were rejected because the remote, which is just a remote repository, contains work that you do not have locally. So it says, oh, try git pulling. Okay. So I run git pull. And I get a merge conflict. And this is because GitHub has like a merge algorithm that it runs to try and handle like multiple contributors working in the same repository. But if you guys work on like the same line or sometimes even the same file, GitHub's merge algorithm fails and it says like, hey, we'll just let the user resolve the conflicts manually. So that's what we can do. So if we open this up, we see there's like two sections. So this refers to the changes that are already pushed onto a repository. So if we go here, we see that this misspelled commit has already been pushed. And that's the contents. Sorry, these are the contents of that. And this is the commit hash of that commit. These are the changes that I have locally. Turns out I think my changes are more important than anyone else's changes. So I'll delete their changes. And now when I run git status, it says I'm in the middle of a merge. And it says like two people or both have modified hello, but I've already finished resolving the changes. So I can add it and commit and say like I resolved the conflict and put a smiley face, and I can get pushed now. And so now if I look at the history of the commits, it's like we have these two. This one, which was from courses demo 2. This is my commit, and then this is the resolve commit as well. So that's sort of like at a basic level, all the stuff that you'll probably be dealing with when you're working with GitHub. There's actually a lot more features that we won't go in depth on, but I'll also post a simple GitHub guide that someone from AppDev wrote up for like the iOS class, I think. So if you had any questions or like installation issues for deployment, now is the time to come up. And I guess for everyone else, we are finished. Unless anyone has any GitHub questions. Great. Okay. Yep. Thank you guys.